Hi, I'm Susie Daphnis of the Australian Businesswomen's Network. My guest today is Robbie Sefton, a New South Wales wool grower and communications expert, two titles you don't often hear together. Robbie and her husband own and operate meat, grains and wool properties. And Robbie is also the owner of a national public relations and marketing consultancy based in Tamworth. Robbie, welcome.
Hello, Susie.
Tell us about the two roles you play. I mentioned you have two very different roles, one as a farmer, the other as an executive.
Yes. Well, it is unusual, and I guess I get the best of both worlds. So on the weekends, I get to put on my R.M. Williams boots and go and muster sheep and drench and draft them. In fact, we're just about to start shearing, and we have about 12,000 sheep, so there's quite a few of them. And then during the week, I run my national business. So I guess I was a girl originally from the country, and as they say, you can take the girl out of the country, but you can never take the country out of the girl. And so I have this fantastic opportunity where I can live in the country, live on our farm, but I get to work in both environments. So I spend a lot of time travelling Sydney, Melbourne, Canberra, Brisbane, and but I also do Burke, Brewarrina and Walgett. So I live in this unusual world of being able to do both, and it's just fantastic.
We have a huge rural community, obviously, in Australia, but as businesswomen, I don't know that those of us that live in the cities know what it's like to be a woman working from the land. So what is that like?
Well, it's quite challenging, but it's also enormously rewarding. So you really get to experience the true environment. So having that soil under your feet, it becomes embedded in your soul, really. And so you get very close to nature, and so through your crops or your livestock, but particularly through the native flora and fauna, and then all the surrounding animals you may have, like horses and sheep, dogs and that type of thing. So it's a fantastic place to bring children up in the country. And it's an interesting world because there are some very great opportunities and some great experiences, but there's also some extreme hardships. So, for instance, on the east coast of Australia, we've just gone through 10 years of drought, and that's really hard and very tough. So in the city, imagine not having any income for 10 years. So that's as tough as it gets. So there's no cash flow, you can't get, the crops don't grow, you can't then harvest them, so then there's no money, there's not enough feed for the stock, that type of thing. So it's about managing risk on farms, and it's also about having a really sensible, practical, but also quite an enlightened view on life. So farmers and farming families are very practical, caring people who are very resilient and robust.
And we know that a lot of farms are owned by families, as you just mentioned, and quite often they're husband and wife teams. So what role do the women play that perhaps we are not aware of?
Well, I guess in the past we're used to seeing those old photos of women, you know, in their long skirts with their aprons on and tending the children and you know, looking like they're doing hard work, which is what it has been based on. So I guess now with labour-saving devices and things like on the farm and also in the home, it's changed lives incredibly. So just like in an urban environment, women play an incredible role on the family farm. So they are often the quiet, hidden business people on farms. So they're the ones that often manage the books and actually implement all of their bookkeeping and things. Plus they're the ones that are negotiating often with the accountant and the bank manager, managing the suppliers, and then often making strategic decisions with their husbands. So whilst the husbands will often be running the farm and doing the production decisions, the women will often be making the other business decisions. But particularly they're the glue of the family. Now farms are often run by families, I should say, and families often have sons and sometimes daughters running farms, and then the sons often will find a partner and bring that partner back into the farming environment. So then it becomes like a true 2 or 3 generational farms. You hear of people saying, I'm a 5th generation farmer. So it means that that farm's been in that family for 5 generations, which is quite a unique impact. That doesn't often happen in urban environments.
No.
And so women have to be quite good negotiators. They need to be very aware and intuitive, and they're often the glue, not just of their family or of the farm, but also of their community. So they contribute a lot to the local community. They're often the volunteers. They're the ones that are involved in the kids' sports, and actually not just taking them to sport and standing on the sidelines, but they're running the sports. They're umpiring, or they're in the canteen, or they're on the gate. So they're really active in every aspect of their family's life, the farm's life, but particularly the community's life as well.
Now you've taken on a number of leadership roles, some of them voluntary, and those roles have really impacted the rural communities of Australia. Why the passion to take on those roles?
Well, I guess for me, I always found that, like being brought up in the country, I always thought it was a privilege, and I've seen a lot of change, particularly some of the challenging times that we've seen, the very tragic fires that we've had in Victoria, the droughts that we've had, as I've mentioned, and I also see the change that women have now got an opportunity to run any business that they like from anywhere in the world. So anyone can do that, not just women, but on farms that really unleashes lots of opportunities for women. So I guess my leadership roles is just to demonstrate that gender doesn't need to matter. In agriculture, it is very male dominated, even though women make up 50% of farming communities, but be them farmers or be them living in communities that are supplying, like the head of dealership, that type of thing, machinery dealership. So women are really active, but I guess for me, I was very keen just to, from a leadership point of view, to demonstrate that yes, you can be all of that, the mother, the carer, the farmer's wife, all of that, but you can also be a successful business person or successful in leadership. And it's just about women having the confidence to actually stand up and say, look, I can take on this role of president, be that president or chair of their local community or of something bigger or of their industry association, or it's a matter of actually having the skills and expertise for them to take it on. So I guess I'm a real supporter of people, particularly women, getting those skills and expertise so that they can take on those leadership roles.
Very good. I'm going to ask you a little bit of a political question, if you like. We're hearing a lot about immigration. As far as there's two sides. Yes, we need more people for Australia to move forward. Our cities are overcrowded. Where does regional Australia fit in that picture?
We have a strong history of people coming from other countries into the bush. So in New South Wales alone, like at the beginning of the century, a lot of the dams, for instance, that are on farms, and a lot of the clearing that's been done on properties had been done by Chinamen. So the Chinese people were living, there were hundreds of thousands of them. And then the cafes, so our culture in small country towns, nearly every country town had a Chinese restaurant as well as a Greek cafe. So we've always had a multicultural community in rural and regional Australia. Probably not as diverse as we have in the cities, and it's certainly not as diverse as it was, or as diverse as it is now in cities. However, I really feel quite strongly that, you know, we all talk about this overpopulation that we're could be experiencing in Australia, and we talk about how clogged and choked our cities are, and how tough it is, you know, to drive to work 2 hours to work and 2 hours back. Really tough stuff. Yet we don't hear about regional Australia or rural Australia. We don't hear that there are quite vibrant cities of 60 to 80,000 people living in these communities with all of the cultural, social and economic environmental aspects that city communities have. Like Tamworth, where I come from, for instance, it's a great place to do business. It has something like 13 flights a day to Sydney. It has 4 flights a day to Brisbane. Right. So it has everything that you need. It has surgeons, specialists, a great hospital. It has something like 3 private schools.
And with technology, you can run a national business like you do out of Tamworth.
Absolutely, and I guess that I really demonstrate that. I travel every week, and I've got a team of 16 around Australia. We work for large corporate and government organisations who need to reach rural and regional Australia. And our team members are just as bright and just as savvy as you'd find in Pitt Street in Sydney or in Collins Street in Melbourne. So it's not, people aren't all hayseeds, they're not all slow and dang-a-dang-a-dang. So there's actually a vibrancy in the bush that's a different pace, a different pulse, but there's certainly a lot of opportunity to be very innovative. And you can actually think out there. So you're only a 2-minute drive away from the bush. So, and usually you've got friends or family that have got farms that you can actually go and escape to and do all sorts of things. Plus there's lots of recreational activities, bushwalking, water, lots of water skiing activities. So everything you can do in the city, you can do out in the bush.
In a more relaxed environment.
Absolutely. And people are pretty relaxed and authentic, and so they're easygoing, and it's true what they say about friendly country people. they are friendly. They have got time to say g'day, how you going, and they do care about each other.
Great.
So,
Let me just wrap this up by asking you for 3 quick pieces of advice that you might give businesswomen, not necessarily only rural women, but just women across Australia who are in business.
well, I think it's really important to be really clear about what it is that you're doing and be passionate about that. So on those days when it's really hard to get out of that bed and get things done, it's the passion that keeps you going. And that's the thing that enrolls and engages your team, be that a team of 1 or 2 or be that a team of 20 or 30. So that passion's really critical. And again, being clear about what path you want to take, always being in a learning environment, make sure that you're always equipping yourself with new skills and expertise. And I think being really authentic and having good values, being really true to your word and making sure that you really look after your team and your clients and your customers in a way that you expect to be looked after yourself. So putting them first rather than yourself, but without being a martyr in that. So being strong and assertive, but also having those traits that I think a lot of women have, which is really caring about people.
Thank you so much for joining us, Robbie.
Thanks, Susie.